Hey everybody, it's MaddMyke with my first official YouTube/Twitch stream of Disciples Liberation. I guess I anticipated this game enough to make it my first stream. Must be pretty cool. I was a big fan of Disciples 1 and 2. If you've seen any of the Kalypso Media company's streams, and they did a lot of streaming and kind of demoing and overviewing of the game up to its launch today, then you've probably already seen a lot of this and you may not be interested. This is basically with the intent to show kind of a first playthrough. And so for gamers who are interested in it, have not purchased it yet, or those who maybe did see some of the developer streams and videos but would like to see a little more, or you have purchased it, you just haven't started playing it yet, whatever your reason, whatever your fancy, as they say, I'm here to show you a little bit of Disciples Liberation, Disciples 3. So I played it already a little bit. That's one of the first caveats of the stream here. Up until my character is, I think, around level 13, and I believe you can go, level 50 and beyond. So I have not played deeply into the game yet, but I think I've played it enough to point out some things that I discovered in my first tiny little playthrough today after launch that I can share with you as we walk through. So I'll start a new game for us, and like I said, I would have already discovered some of these things that we'll talk about. So let's dive right in. So this is the title screen. It has a nice soundtrack. I like that in a game, although I generally turn the music to about 50%, so that it's not overwhelming with all the other sound effects, etc. So typical settings available here. One thing I tweaked immediately as I started a new game was combat speed. I bumped that up to 150%, which for me is decent. I'm thinking about 200%. That's the max. It starts at 100, so I chose 150. Combat speed affects all units, or just the enemies, which is kind of interesting. So I leave that on all. The game does support different control profiles. I'm playing it on a PC, so the default keys were fine for me. You're obviously welcome to change those. When I'm playing solo games at home, I run a NVIDIA GeForce 3080 RTX. I was actually able to get a hold of one of those by purchasing a pre-built gaming machine, which is the first time I've ever done that in my entire life. Usually I build all my own rigs, but that was the only way I could get a card. so I got it. If you're curious what I got or how I was able to finagle one of those, I'm happy to respond to a private message or whatever and tell you what system I purchased. It was actually the cheapest system with a 3080 pre-built into it that I could find, and that's including all the kind of bargain, third-party, no-name pre-built gaming machine manufacturers out there, whatever. Anyway, so I feel like I did a pretty good job. That's not the point of this video, though, so we'll bypass that. I only bring it up because I generally, when I play solo, I will run games in 5120 by 1440. I have a beautiful 39-inch, I believe it's called the Aegon from AOC, which is a fantastic ultra-wide, super ultra-wide monitor. For streaming, I'm reducing that down to 1920 by 1080. That seems to be kind of the standard streaming resolution, so I don't want to rock anybody's boat and gives you this weird long rectangle video that you have to kind of squint and see when you're watching the stream. Anyway, I've got everything pretty much maxed out here, but you do have some options to reduce some settings here if you don't want to tax your machine too much, depending on your video card, etc. And like I say, the audio, I just usually run 100%, 50% music, etc. So you're more interested in the game, so let's do a new game.
It is a time between times. For epochs, Nevendar's disciples have been victims of the whims of divinity. The people suffer, They fight, they die and are reborn to fight and die again. But the era of gods is ending. Their twin chains of chaos and cruelty will break. Fearing the dawn of this final age, the people turn to their gods once more. They find no answers. Fear becomes paranoia. Paranoia becomes rage, and rage brings war with it. But war cannot stop the liberation of Nevendar. Even now, its unlikely savior awakens to her fate. What she does next will shape the future of the world.
So pretty decent intro video quality. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of the narrator's voice in the video. You're going to see all sorts of equipment and bonuses come in here on the side as I start the game. I bought the deluxe edition, and I think a lot of what I'm getting here is due to the deluxe edition bonus content. You're welcome to get the non-deluxe version as well. Last time I checked, you could actually get the best deal, the best discount, if you go to the Kalypso website itself, purchase it there, and you get a higher discount than you would if you purchased it, for example, directly from Steam, and you get a Steam key. So you can just put the key into Steam, and that's how they deliver the download for you. So it's worth it buying it from the Kalypso site. As we go through the intro here and start off the game, I will kind of fast forward some of the narration, the text, the narrative text here. You obviously can read that more closely if you wish by pressing pause on the video or whatever. I don't want to take a lot of people's time actually walking through the complete audio dialogue. I'll play enough of it that you'll hear the main character's voice, her main sidekick companion's voice, some of the other core character voices, just so you get a taste or a flavor of the voiceover talent in the game. I think so far, and again, I've only played, I want to say, a couple hours into the game. I'm about level 13. I think so far the voice talent is pretty good. Some of it is pretty stellar, actually. Some of it strikes me as a little bit cheesy. We'll point out a couple of those as we go through, you know, how that kind of is with audio, etc. Some of that's subjective. I'm kind of picky. I'm an audiophile, so I'm picky about stuff like that. But anyway, I think it's good so far. So here's the start. You return from your lookout to the sewers below the Church of St. Darchild. Orion, your best friend, lay asleep. Were it not for his snoring, you'd think his motionless body dead. So again, I'm not going to read all this to you.
Ori,
There's the start.
You all right?
What? Oh, Avy. I thought you were a church guard.
So that male actor's character... Let me reverse that male actor's character. The male voiceover talent for Ori, actually, I can tell does a few of the other voices in the game. Even some like NPCs and enemies that you face and stuff like that. That's fine to reuse your voice talent. I just thought that was interesting.
I don't know what's worse, your snoring or this stench. How can you sleep down here?
I can sleep and drink anywhere. It's a gift. What time is it?
Just past twilight. The priest's holy hands have gone, leaving 3 unaccounted for that I've seen.
Right. Well, how are we going to do this?
Alright, so I'm going to skip some of these little tooltips or hints as well. Kind of walkthrough or tutorial type hints that pop up in the game. Again, you can pause any of these on the video that you wish, read through them. If you're interested, and again, especially if you haven't bought the game yet, you're interested in what you're going to see here. This is just a quick one. It tells you what the different icons mean in conversations. And that's one of the things that I like so far. Again, I'm not way into the game, but I'm already discovering, or I should say I've already discovered, that you can turn the direction of the storyline fairly early on, and you make decisions that are game impacting fairly quickly into the game. And it's almost to the point where I get a little nervous because I'm OCD about that sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to make this decision and close off this plot opportunity for me or whatever. Thus the replayability value, right? Maybe that's another one of the early reasons why you want to go back and replay the game. I'm already kind of anticipating that because it does seem to make a difference already, fairly, from the beginning. So it's kind of cool.
Kill the priest, I mean.
So even right here, right? No witnesses, kill everyone, which is kind of the evil, the horny, horny? Probably not the term I meant. The evil with demon horns choice. Ask for the questions, which doesn't really sway, anything one way or the other. She sticks a little deeper. The ring is kind of the neutral, and then you'll see angel wings, which is kind of like a good choice for some other dialogue. So let's just ask more questions quickly.
I need to talk this out first.
Of course.
So who's the priest?
What do we know about this priest?
Let's see. Sebastian, enemy of the Vale and Empire, has taken his royal guard and
Occupied.
Right. Has taken his royal guard and occupied the sacred church of Saint Dartchild. Well, he sure sounds evil enough.
You can probably tell already that Yllian has some sidekick comedy-esque flavor in the game. Most of it has been, funny enough. I mean, there's some things that he says and even some enemies that you encounter that are a little kind of over-the-top cheesy for my taste. I don't think it ruins the game at all, but there's definitely a flavor of humor through here. So, what are we doing again?
Let's go over what we know so far.
Smart. We're mercenaries. I'm your best friend, Orion.
Stop joking, Ori.
Sorry, but what is there to say? All I know is the contract to kill the priest pays more than we'd make in a lifetime, and now we're in the sewers under his church waiting for the guards to go to sleep.
Remember that, waiting for the guards. What would you do?
I'm always coming up with the plans. It wouldn't kill you to think of one once in a while.
My plan is to follow your lead. That's been my plan since we were kids. Hasn't failed me yet. Fine. I guess I could distract the guards while you go for the priest.
Okay, so he's going to distract the guards while you go for the priest. It seems like an interesting little approach. If this were a book or a movie, as you'll see, it doesn't turn out that way, which is kind of funny that they would so pointedly bring out that option, right? Like, you don't have to fight everyone, you can just go for the priest.
There's only one way to do this right.
Agreed. What is it?
So then you get to choose, right? And in this case, the amicable or angel-esque plan is to kind of, I don't want to say patronize, it's the opposite. It's kind of praise Ori's plan. Hey, we'll go with your plan. Be stealthy and kill only him. No witnesses, kill everyone. So we go with your plan last time. It didn't lead to distracting the guards and killing the priest alone. So let's try being more specific here. Be stealthy and kill only him.
We be precise. We get in, take out this priest, and go get our pay.
But what about the guards? If any of them see our faces, the Empire will hunt us down, and our families.
So it's going to pull us in.
Those guards have families, too.
Oh.
You seem nervous.
We've done a lot of contracts, but killing's never easy. So, yes, I'm nervous. Aren't you?
And you have these options we get. Later, act now. Yeah, we're doing the right
The contract said this priest is as corrupt as they come. We're doing the people a favor.
We're basically heroes.
That's right. So we sneak in, stay unseen, take out the priest, and get out.
Simple as that.
Okay. You would think. It gives you a little background. So in the game, you can get companions. You can also get units. And what they've done, and we'll point out little facets as we go through the actual game itself, they've taken what I feel like is different elements of games like King's Bounty, which you'll see a lot of, kind of that King's Bounty / Might and Magic, type top-down or isometric 3D view of the characters as you explore around. Might and Magic comes to mind as well. You're on your horse exploring the map. You can interface with things, pick up resources, etc. It's a zoomed-in version of that Might and Magic type of idea. You'll recall, those of you who've played the King's Bounties games, that they had that same kind of overland interface, and then when you fought, you'll see a lot of callback to King's Bounty type features in the way that enemies notice you, or you could run away and leave them confused, or when you do engage them, the way that the combat plays out, etc. Anyway, you can acquire a certain number of companions in the game. I think I found 3 so far, 3 or 4. They're theoretically always with you, is the idea, as you're adventuring, but you may not have equipped them on either your front or back lines, and so they may not actually fight in battles with you. So that's something we'll revisit again, and you'll see more about what I mean. Each companion also has their own storyline. They have a couple skills that they start with when you find them, and then they can unlock, if you pursue their storyline, what the game calls a world skill. So it's the 3rd skill that they can unlock that enables you to do things like overcome obstacles on the map, teleport your party quicker, things like that. And so though that 3rd skill is not unlocked when you find them, at least in the companions I found so far, you have to pursue their individual storyline to a point where you actually unlock that skill. So this tells you a little bit about Ori. He's your first companion. So again, here's the top-down view. Some things I noticed really quickly. It's kind of click and go, like, a lot of games, including, the Diablo-esque movement mechanic. However, I couldn't find it in the settings, and I'll look again really quickly. Kind of like an edge panning for the camera. Let's see, controls. I may have missed it. Yeah, there's keys, and we'll show that in a second. I don't think there's any edge panning though. Video. Edge panning, yeah. I don't see it. If somebody knows who plays the game, or even somebody from Kalypso watching this video, let me know. I don't think there's an edge panning feature. So I expected that there would be. So the first thing I noticed is I'm hitting the side of the screen. I'm like, how come it's not moving? So I just got into the habit of keeping my fingers over WASD, which I would do in a first-person shooter anyway. And as I explore, I can purposely hit like A or W if I'm moving up or to the left and move the map with me. I do wish they at least had a center character on map function when you're walking, so that the map stays around your character centered in the middle. They don't, to my knowledge. I haven't been able to discover it, so that's something you're going to want to get used to. Now that's the overland map. In a dungeon map, which we happen to be in right now, the WASD keys don't do anything. If you saw me hitting my keyboard, you would see I'm pressing them, they're not doing anything. So there is a limited or a restricted view in the dungeon, I'm sure on purpose, where they don't want you looking ahead down a hall, right? And so instead of like a fog of war idea, they implemented a restricted camera approach in a dungeon. It kind of irritated me at first, but actually I've gotten to the point where I don't mind it. I think it's an okay way to manage that. What I wish they had was a mini-map. If you press M in the dungeon, you're not going to get a mini-map either. You get a sort of map when you press M on the overland map, and I'll show you how that works. So in a dungeon like this, which is where you start off, you're going to see an arrow indicator if you have an active mission pointing to where the next step of the mission is. Your character's level up here, your health and your mana, very similar mechanics to what a lot of players are used to. Into the twilight, up and down. I assume that means if you press the up or down arrow keys, you can cycle between missions. We only have the one right now. Then you have your keys down here that on the bottom right of the screen that allow you to go into your journal. You can also press J, I believe, from the main screen. Yep. We've only got the one right now. You can do sorting, etc. You'll see there's 4 different factions in the game. The Empire, which are kind of the human faction, the Elven Alliance, the Undead Hordes, and the Legions of the Damned, which are kind of demons. And so you'll see and hear more about that as we go through the game more. You've got your character. Since we're in here, we might as well. This was a little different for me, and I'll explain why more too. There's 3 different ways, I guess 2 different ways, that you access equipment and so forth in the game with Aviana, the main character, companions like Ori, and your units. And I think I understand why they separated some of the functionality between how you access items and inventory and so forth among those three types. I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of how they executed it. I can't tell you what my suggestion would be right off the top here, but you'll see again a little bit more what I'm talking about when we get in more. So right off the bat, I've got some stuff to equip. I'm sure some of this is because I got the deluxe version, and so let's go in and look at things. You left click on the item with an exclamation point. It will tell you what you've got to put in place of that. So I have the Royal Sword of Abrasel, which I believe comes with the deluxe set. It's a pretty decent sword. I've been upgrading it. You can upgrade your equipment in the game, which is kind of cool. Even like epic stuff you can upgrade. And a staff. So right off the bat, it's kind of like, well, I'm kind of a warrior class right now, so I can't equip the cane or wand. I can equip this. So you simply left click it and it replaces it. So again, I've got the weapons up. Whatever I left click on in here will replace my held weapon. If I go in here, they have what's called emotion shards, which are kind of like whatever you want to kind of define those as. Think of a Diablo type of gem idea, but instead of inserting it into a socketed weapon, you're inserting it into your equipped inventory. As far as I can tell, you can only equip one at a time. You can combine and upgrade and do cool things with shards through the game. You can interchange or intermingle inventory items with any companion or the main character that you wish, as long as they have the class to equip it. So that's cool. It's not bound to you. Even the deluxe items that you get with the deluxe version aren't bound to you, which I think is nice. So right here, you start with Sovereign Shard of Nebendar, which gives you plus 10% experience. I'm not sure if everybody starts with that or if you have to have the deluxe edition, but we'll equip that. We see that we also have started with a breastplate. We've got two options: Dark Elven Robes, if we want to be better with magic, or the Armor of a Twilight Twin, which is the one I equipped on my first playthrough. I'll equip that again. And we don't have anything else. We have our skill tree with 5 skill points. So as it says here, each time you level, you gain a skill point that you can invest in Combat, Nephilim, or Magic skill tree. After investing a certain amount of points in a skill tree, you unlock the passive effects shown in the area of the skill tree. You also gain access to the next tier. So I'll tell you right off the bat, this confused me a little bit, because if you look in here, if you're like me, so the first thing I did is I looked top down, which, I don't know, call me an idiot, whatever. I looked top down. I guess some people may, oh, you look bottom up. I'm like, okay, I want to unlock Eye for an Eye, rank 1. I couldn't, click on it, whatever. And then it occurred to me, oh, you start at the bottom. Well, no, not really, which was a little confusing. So, like, this looks like it's not locked, and I can invest in it, but it won't let me. When you take a second glance, you realize it's grayed out, even though there isn't a lock symbol on it. So the way that they're displaying this here is, this is tier 1 from the line up. And so the way my brain understood it when I first looked at this screen was tier 1 was this line down. These were all tier 2, from the 2 down. This is 3 down. And then maybe these are special ones that, like the passive skills it talked about. It's actually almost the reverse. So the passive skills are down here, and they will unlock or activate and not be grayed out anymore if they are unlocked already, like wanted, as you invest enough points above, which it tells you about. So for example, it says 10 points have to be spent anywhere in the combat tree here, and then you can actually start spending points on wanted. And then to unlock this one, you have to be the Warlord or Hexblade class. Now I have to be honest, I don't know what that means yet. My guess is as you go to certain tiers, maybe to tier 2 or 3, you can actually become a class in each of these skill set trees because you focused enough points in it that you become a Warlord or you become a Hexblade, right? Whatever, I don't know. That's my assumption. Maybe we'll find out together. And then once you've spent 25 points anywhere across the whole combat category, it unlocks this to purchase. So you get the idea. So these are the passive skills that it mentioned in the hint box. The one line up are the ones you can start spending points in. So I didn't isolate too much in my first little playthrough of a couple hours so far. I kind of spread points across things that I thought were cool. Also because it's my first playthrough and I wanted to see kind of what does what, right? So some that I'll invest in right off the bat here. Hardy is just, you can tell you can put more than 1 point in some of these skills. Some of them you just have it or not. So Hardy is like a 0 or 1 thing, right? So now I've bought Hardy and I have an extra 5% hit points and 5% resistance from physical damage. There's different types of damage and resistances in the game. You can kind of probably catch on to that pretty quickly. That one I like. And then you can see it's kind of by itself. It doesn't lead to any skills. You don't have to get it to unlock other skills above, and you can only spend 1 point in it. You basically have it or you don't. But Nimble is an example of a skill that you can put up to 3 points in, so it has tiers within it. And then once you get, I believe, all 3 points in it, nope, you just need 1 point, and then you need to be a Hexblade, then you can unlock this hit run. So you can see dependencies are based. Some skills are dependent on unlocking. Basically, you're going to be used to any game that you've ever played that has skill trees or tiers and XYZ unlocks another. It's no more complex than that, right? So let's take a look at these. I am going to get Nimble. There's action points in the game, and you'll see how those work in combat. And a lot of these abilities and skills depend on if you wait or you end your turn and you have action points left, or if you're hit during your turn. So for example, Nimble activates when an enemy lands a critical hit on Aviana, the main character. Then she gets 20% chance to dodge the next incoming attack from anyone on the screen. And so that levels up 20, 40, 60 or something like that. So yep, 20, 40. I imagine level 3 is 60. So we'll get one there. And then for each unspent action point at the end of a turn, Aviana's initiative is increased by 5 for the next round. So we'll bump that up as well. And now let's look over here. Twilight Might, plus 5% to divine and unholy power and resistances. Teamwork is nice because it affects other people around you, not just you. Get that. You have to get skills to get certain tiers of spells. So one of the questions I was asked by some friends who played the original Disciples games was, how like the first Disciples game is this one? And I would say it's almost, I'll say it negatively. It's not like the first Disciple games at all. I mean, there's an overland map. There's the grid-based combat, right? When you get into, and it's turn-based combat. That's probably the main similarities right there. Everything else is more like, it plays more like a kind of a Might and Magic slash King's Bounty type of game, but with modernized graphic engine and so forth, right? And you'll see. But I mentioned that the similarities to other Disciples games because you'll recall in the old Disciples games, even though they were much more limited as far as the scope of spells and things you could get, there was this idea of tiers of spells. So that's something that's kind of, and then you'll see references to Yllian and references to Mortis and some of the faction-esque gods and cultures and stories from the prior Disciples games. So they play off that a little bit to feed into the storyline or kind of the lore of the game. But the game itself is not much like it. So anyway, 1 point left. How about, these are all spell related. I'm going to just get this one, Primal Energies. Confirm. Okay, so another thing I noticed is in a lot of games on the PC, right, you'll have the opportunity, so here it says hit escape to go back. If my hand isn't near escape and my mouse is running around on the screen, it's just as easy for me to click that, but I can't. And so this isn't one of those things that would make me give this like a thumb down review or something, right, on Steam or something. It's just little nuances, little aesthetics, and little user journey or UI, type of topics there. Why not make this clickable? It's not that tough, but I'll hit escape because that's the only way you can get back to the prior screen. There's a lot of that in the game. You can't normally click on any of this except for the buttons on the main window on the overland map or whatever. You have to hit escape to go back to the prior screen. It's not going to make me cry, but it is a little weird, I think. It's kind of a little limiting, but whatever. Then you can go into your units. Right now it's just Ori and I. And so what you'll find here is the idea of frontline area, all the units available to you to staff, all your companions available to you to staff into this frontline area or the backline area. And so I thought this was an interesting mechanic. You'll see already, if you've played any kind of fantasy-based or even a lot of turn-based games that aren't fantasy-related, whatever, especially some of the ones we've mentioned already, like Might and Magic and King's Bounty, etc., you'll recall similar ideas, although I don't know that any of them had this backline frontline concept that we'll explain in a second. If I'm missing one, let me know. I think this is a new creation for Disciples Liberation. It's very possible that I'm wrong and Kalypso or another company made a game that has this frontline backline concept. Let me know. I haven't played every game in the world, so I'm sure it could exist out there somewhere. So the idea is this front line here, if you picture the enemy force in the combat screen on the right coming to the left. So this is literally the front hexes, so you could, if you want people to participate in kind of the melee or, spell casting, mono a mono type, sword to sword, whatever, fighting, this is the frontline area where they would do that. So they can cast their spells, initiate their attacks directly, take damage directly. If they die, they die. Although companions, so far I've seen, as long as you win the battle, even if you have just units left that aren't companions, your companions come back after the battle with limited hit points. So that's nice. You don't lose your companions permanently. But, I can move, I say I want them up front, and then as I get ranged characters, maybe I put them more in back, right? So your typical kind of strategic or tactical positioning of forces. I kind of just leave them at the defaults right now because you'll see there is some advantage in a lot of combat to just wait and let the enemy come to you. For some reason, Avy's already a little hurt. I don't remember. Maybe that was in the story. I don't know. Backline, they don't participate in the sword and blood and face-to-face battle. They're kind of like it usually shows them literally up on a tier, like a cliff or stairwell or something behind the combat, and they have the ability to use their backline skill. So everybody has a backline skill as well as the abilities and things they do in frontline combat. And so, Ori's backline skill, well, he doesn't have a backline skill. I wonder if most companions don't. I don't think companions do. So take that back. If you want a companion to fight, they have to be in the front line. Units. The units you can hire and train and stuff, they have frontline and backline skills. And so usually what they have, like Avy has these, they will have 2 frontline skills and 1 backline skill. And obviously the backline skill doesn't activate unless you have them in a position in the back line. And you can see that you can have up to 3 units back there. If they're out of the back line and they're in combat directly, then you can't use their backline skill, but you can use their 2 other skills. So there you go. So that's one thing that I thought was cool, which is new to me. Another thing you have to keep in mind here, and I'll show you again when we get our first units, is that you can see your limits here as far as how many units and companions and so forth you can put in the front line, back line, how many companions total you can have with you. Okay, these can go up based on your character's level and your skill and things like that, and so you can get more leadership, you can get higher numbers here. As far as I've seen so far, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I don't think you can increase your backline more than 3, but again, I'm only level 13. We'll find out. I don't know if you can increase your front line either more than 10. We'll find out. What did confuse me, and again, I said we'll visit it again when we go over units. I had enough units to put in, let's say, 5 or 6 people in the front line and the back lines at one time early in the game, and I couldn't place them. And I wasn't paying attention to the fact that you can only equip as many units as the leadership cost of those units. And so you only have 10 leadership to start. This is a direct pull from the King's Bounty games, where you also have a leadership stat. And so this literally affects, even if you have the slots for it, it affects the number of units you can put into and staff your front and back lines. And for some reason I spaced that in my first little playthrough, first hour or so, and I was like, why can't I fill out my 10 slots here? And again, it's because each person costs a certain amount of leadership. All right, got it? So you can tell that when you put people in the back line, that's what this minus 100% cost means. They don't cost any leadership if you put them in the back line, which can be pretty advantageous to you because you can have some cool skills that are being cast from the back line and it doesn't affect your leadership. Okay, let's get out of here for a second. So let's just run around. You can hold the left mouse button down and move it around like you might with Diablo. You can also just click and run. So I'm going to just click here. And there you go, right? As they walk through dungeons and sometimes on the overland map, they will say little things down here without actually voice talent, verbalizing those. So that's kind of cool if you want to look at the story, whatever. So I have not purposely walked into poison clouds and things like that in dungeons or in the overland map for fear that it would actually damage me. Can't tell you if it really does or if it's just aesthetic. Here's your first dude that you meet. So remember, you're going for this priest. You've been given a contract. You and Ori are these mercenaries that have known each other since childhood. You've been given a contract to go after this priest. Supposedly he's a bad priest, and you're going to sneak around the guards, right, to get to the priest, because that was our choice. And so I assume these are the guards, and so we're going to sneak around him to get to the priest.
Impure! His eye sees all!
You can't sneak around him. So that's the part that I thought was funny, because it literally has you choose. Go just for the priest, try to distract the guards. I mean, maybe you're supposed to believe that these 2 guards that you find here are in addition to the guards that you distracted. I have tried a couple little narrative playthroughs while saving my game in this very first part, and nothing's different. I always encounter these 2 guards. So I just think it's interesting that they even have you decide that at all. Again, it's not anywhere near a game breaker. It's just kind of a funny story element where I'm like, why do I have a decision if it doesn't affect what happens? But that's okay. So here's our first battle. As you go into every battle, you can change this, right? By hitting edit. So again, it's interesting because so I'm here, and there's just a couple interesting things that I'll bring to your guys' attention as far as interface. Since I'm here and I can hover over these and it looks like I can click them, you would think I could edit them and drag them around right here, and I can't. So I can right click and I can inspect Ori, and I can see that his 1 combat skill is Debilitating Strike, and you guys can read and perceive what this does. I'm not going to handhold you with all the little mechanics of every single skill and stuff, right? I assume a lot of people watching this video are seasoned, fantasy RPG players, whatever, and I'll let that be. He has a cloak, which is kind of like an invisibility idea. When you attack, it is disabled, or if you're hit by a splash, damage or something like that, it disables. And then passively, he's always high-spirited, meaning he gets +3 to his morale, and any flanking damage dealt by him is increased to 80%, which I think maybe the standard is 50% damage, or whatever, extra damage. Okay, anyway, the point is, if I can come in here, you would think that I could move him around. I cannot. I have to hit edit. And then the other thing is in here before, so we're back in here, if I want to change my layout, and you can, almost like the idea of, what's the term in Magic the Gathering? Sideboard. You could kind of have a sideboard of companions and units that you can swap here, which I think is kind of cool, depending on the battle and the enemies that you're facing. You cannot drag these guys, which I thought was kind of odd. You have to left click them once. Now they're available. Anything red, you can't put her there, so she can't go into the back line. She can't go into here, right? She's the main character, so she's in every battle as far as I can tell. But I could move her here. Left click, move, left click again. Not the most intuitive to me. I'd like to just drag and drop, and if I drag and drop two characters to each other, they would swap places. Again, just a design choice. So I'm gonna hit ready, and here's the two dudes. You'll notice retreat and conquer. I've never clicked on retreat. I figured if I wanted to attack these guys, that's why I attacked them, so I haven't seen the need to retreat yet. Conquer's available when your army gets tough enough that I think if it were to do an auto battle, you would win 99% of the time, then Conquer becomes available. And that's a quick way to, as many games have done, simply calculate the battle, give you any gold or experience you would have earned if you were to fight the turn-by-turn battle, and call it a day. And it's nice to do that now and then, because you get the same, as far as I've been able to tell, the same experience and gold and everything that you would have got if you did the turn-based battle. But unlike some games where it's literally calculating the odds and you could sustain casualties to your units, so far what I've seen in Liberation is that when the conquer button's available, you win every time, and you don't sustain any casualties or even damage to your units, which is kind of cool. I mean, some people may say that's a little OP, but I think it's actually handy and it's convenient. So so here we are. I'm not going to read all that. Okay. The main point that it tried to tell you there is there's different kinds of action points. There's gold, red, blue, I believe, and I'll let you guys read it when you play, or if you're going to play. But the idea is, if I'm not speaking out of turn here, because again, I'm not an expert in the game yet, gold action points you can use for movement or combat, or attacking. Blue you can only use for spells, I believe. Red you can only use for combat, for striking. Right? And so Ori has 2 gold, meaning he could move twice, or he could move once and attack, or he could attack twice if he doesn't move. So that's kind of the idea of, I think they could have done it differently, right? Like an old sci-fi role-playing game I played, and I've seen this in other games, both computer and RPG type ideas. I had defensive and combative action points, and then I simplified it even further to just have action points. And you could go all out attack, where you use all your actions to attack. You could use all your actions to defend, or you could split them up or move, for one of them. If you sprinted, it used all your action points. If you just kind of jogged or walked a little, it just used one. So it's that kind of idea. What they've done, what Kalypso's done in this game, is they have actually literally divided the types of action points. And to counter what you might think of as a drawback for that, like why would I not always spend all my action points, or doesn't that kind of cripple me if I'm a spellcaster, for example, and I don't want to move and I want to cast a spell? Am I penalized because I didn't get the advantage of using that remaining movement action point in any way that I want, like casting a spell twice or something? I mean, you could argue any of that. I think what Kalypso did is a good kind of trade-off, where action points that you reserve or keep at the end of your turn benefit you. And so the more action points you, like if all I did is end turn right now with Ori, he would get the max benefit because he'd have 2 action points he didn't spend. And when you don't spend your action points, again, depending on how many you save, you regain a certain amount of health as a bonus, and then you have other bonuses based on your character and your skills and things, especially for Aviana, the main character. You may recall in the skill tree some skills that specify if she saves a certain amount of action points, she gets this per action point that she saved. So you can think of it that way as that's a good trade-off, right? If you don't spend an action point, you're not penalized for that. In the worst case, you get some health back, and you might have increase your defense, increase your initiative, some other things like that, which again, I like that. I think that's a cool mechanic. So this is where you can do that WASD thing as well. I would expect camera panning. There is none. Maybe they're going to add it, or I just haven't found the setting. So I just have gotten used to doing WASD to move around the map. You can use the mouse wheel to scroll out. You can scroll in pretty close. You can use Q and E to rotate the map. I think, is that 33 degrees or 45 degrees? Maybe about 45 degrees. I wish you could turn it all the way around. I haven't found a recenter key yet. And again, I'm one of those guys that doesn't read the instruction manual usually, so if there's a recenter key, I haven't found which one it is to press it. But no biggie, it's pretty easy to get kind of centered. I don't have to turn the map much either, as far as I've seen so far. Anyway, alright, I'm going to wait, which is very much like wait in other games. Now, instead of waiting, Aviana, if she had some spells right now, she could cast them. She doesn't have any yet. So this is her spell book, and you can see there's 5 different types of spells: Martial, Twilight, Divine, Primal, and Unholy. And she can unlock these as she gets recipes. The recipes that I have found so far in the game, I have unlocked through meeting companions and achieving certain missions, as opposed to opening a chest and finding a scroll with a spell unlocking it or something like that, right? But they may have that too. But so far that's it, right? And so I'm aware of no martial spells right now. That's the 0. I know that 8 Twilight spells exist in the world, but I haven't got the blueprint for any of them yet, and so forth. I know that there's 24 each of Divine, Primal, and Holy. So you can see what they would be, and you can hover over the spell and see what it would do in combat, etc., if you had it. So that's kind of nice, because it kind of gives you a heads up of what you can plan on in the future and so forth. But she doesn't have any right now. So I am going to just go ahead and wait for her.
We will be victorious. Breaking the line.
Now, as you hear those guys talk, if you're like me, you're like, oh, it's pretty cool. You know, at the beginning of the game, you want to hear the voiceovers, you know, of the enemies and your character, etc. If you're also like me, though, you may get tired of it pretty quickly. There is a setting in audio, I believe. Nope. Gameplay. Interface. I thought there was a setting where you could actually control how often they say stuff. Like 50% of the time. That's really weird. I was pretty sure there was a setting. Well, never mind. Maybe I'll find it and we'll go over it again. I'll pause the video and for another segment we'll find that setting. Okay, back to it. So, Ori, his coolest combo so far I have found is this. First of all, always use your cloak.
You mess with Avy, you mess with me!
Zoom up a little bit so you guys can see this. Yeah, so this is good to read here. So, battle begins, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Though you expended an action point, you could have decided to wait, delaying your unit's turn until the end of the round. In that case, you allow the enemy to exhaust themselves by drawing them towards you, thus giving you a perfect opportunity to strike. You can also end a unit's turn without expending their action points. Each unspent action point will restore 10% of a unit's health. So there you go, that's the actual math. So if I saved both of Ori's action points, he would get 20% of his health back. And so it's kind of a nice feature. So he's invisible now, and it works the way invisibility does in most fantasy settings and games and stuff. As long as he doesn't get damaged or attack himself, as far as I've seen, he stays cloaked. What's interesting is it says granting stealth for 2 rounds. Maybe we'll purposely go longer than 2 rounds in this initial combat, because I think that's wrong. I think it has a 2-round recharge, or cooldown, as you can see. But I think he stays cloaked for 5-10 rounds, as long as you want to stay cloaked until you attack or get attacked, or get damaged rather. So
Now you see me.
Now he's done, but next turn you know what he's going to do. So then she's going to move right here, because one of the cool skills she has is Clearing Strike, which is basically Whirlwind. And what's cool about Aviana, you'll see other units that we'll discover fairly early in the game that have a limited version of this, where they can attack like 2 or 3 hexes in a certain direction. She can attack, if there were 6 people around her, she'd attack everyone, which is kind of cool. So I just click on her.
You're done.
She does the damage. Now he's flanking. The way flanking works in the game, I had to discover this as well. You can't be... So what I first thought it was is if Ori, for example, was directly behind, so in a hex-based combat system, right, if he was directly behind the rear side of the hex for the character, for the enemy, that he would get a flanking bonus. I think that you should, quite frankly, because you would be in their blind spot, theoretically. That's not how the game does flanking. How the game does flanking is you literally have to be on opposite sides of the hex. So with this enemy, he's getting a flanking bonus, and so is Aviana, because they're literally on opposite hex sides from each other. So if Aviana was here, or Ori was here, they wouldn't get a flanking bonus. You literally have to be directly across from each other. So, not game breaking again. I do think that if they were going to do that, it's a cool idea, but I also think that especially stealthy characters should get a flanking bonus if they're directly behind. And there should be a line, you know, on the hex that says this is his rear, because sometimes you can't tell with the animation. But we don't need that line, because directly behind doesn't matter. Alright, so he's going to do this now. So when he's cloaked, look what happens. He does bleeding, so it deals this Orion's cloak skill deals increasing physical damage at the beginning of each turn. Bleeding is removed when the unit has healed at least 20% of its hit points. Okay, that's not what I thought. Debilitating strike. Where's the skill that tells us how he does extra damage because he's flanking? Oh, that was in his character sheet, remember? One of his passive skills is that he does 80% extra damage when he flanks. So it's not one of these. Okay, I got confused. Okay. So the way you these function, you left click to activate. You can do WASD to move around. You can scroll in and out. And then you left click again to perform the strike, and you can see here the presumed damage it's going to do is the white bar against his red bar of health.
Feel my brakes bite!
So this causes weakness on the target, which means he does minus 15%. He gets minus 15% to his power, his damage, and all his resistances. And then it also does extra damage and causes bleeding because of this. When you strike from being cloaked, you cause bleeding. Okay, so anyway, got it. Now he can attack one more time because all he's
You
done
mess
is
with
attack.
Avy, you mess with me!
Okay. And then Avy is just going to attack as well.
Face your death.
And end turn.
There will be no surrender.
I don't know if you saw that because it happened pretty fast, but when she ended the turn, because she had an action point left, it gave her a 10% health thing back, like we talked about. So I'm going to go ahead and attack again.
You're done.
And she can't attack twice because all she has is a blue action point left, which is a movement action point. So she has a gold and a blue, whereas Ori has two golds. So a gold, again, if you recall, can be used basically to do anything. So I guess they probably labeled it, you know, they classified it correctly. It's a gold action point, right? You can do anything with it. Cast a spell, move, attack. Blue is move only. So she could move twice. So basically they're the same. They can do anything twice, except blue is only for movement. Or I believe maybe a spell? I don't know. I don't remember. That could be wrong. Could be just movement. Whereas Ori has 2 gold, so he can do 2 of anything. Okay. So we're going to end our turn because I don't need to move. So I'll go ahead and end the turn. Now Ori's going to move behind this guy.
I'll sneak past them.
Now remember, he gets flanking, and that little prompter tooltip popped up because they are on opposite sides of the hex. I have screwed up sometimes and clicked too short and put him like right here, and he doesn't get flanking. So
Feel the stakes fight! Wear them down.
and she should finish it here.
Die. The Liberator reigns.
So then this is the victory screen. Over here you'll see gold. You will see items that you find. Scroll down here. You'll see kind of your experience totals here, and gold again will appear here. I don't believe the items appear next to the gold here. I think they only scroll on the left, but you can obviously go into your inventory after they flash and you can see what they were if you didn't catch it.
Well, the sewers clearly aren't as safe as we thought they'd be.
So much for...
And we'll just click past that audio. And again, like, you'll see when you exit combat or when you exit the overland map and you go into combat or whatever, you're going to want to hit WASD to move around, and you can't in a dungeon. So just remember and don't get too frustrated. I can't interface with that gate. That's fine. Okay, so in dungeons and also in the overland map, you will see these health fountains. They do rejuvenate over time. I don't know what the time is, and I don't know how. I think they rejuvenate indefinitely, so I don't think they like deplete permanently ever. And you can just click on them, and they'll heal everybody in your party. So if you had 8 units with you, they'd heal them all. I believe they heal them all to the max, not just a certain number of points of health. This is important because I have not seen any overland map healing spells or dungeon, you know, like in the dungeon can you cast a spell. There's no world spells or dungeon spells that you can cast, to my knowledge, that certainly that heal you. In fact, Kalypso verified that in a stream that they did, and I was chatting in the stream to him and I asked him about that. But I have found, and I thought that I would hate that. I'm okay with it, I've discovered, for 2 reasons. One is there's plenty of healing skill options within combat. So during combat you can heal your people, keep them up in the fight. After combat, I have found that it's a short ride or walk to a health, you know, shrine or whatever usually. So, oh, there, it came back while I was talking. So it hasn't been a big deal. You know, I think it's weird that you can't heal overland, but then again, if you have a healing spell in the form of a health font, you know, health fountain, I guess that's fine, right? So I heard a grinding noise. I'm guessing that gate we couldn't interact with opened, and it did. way first. Wow. I don't remember walking so far the first time I played this. Oh, hey dude. I don't think I ever found this guy before. Cool. So one thing I've gotten in the habit of doing, you can save the game in 2 ways at least. So you can hit the little gear down here, go to the system menu, and you can hit save. And you'll literally get a list of save slots. You can tell up here, that's not 6 minutes and 32 seconds. It's got to be 6.5 hours. Wow, I've already played 6.5 hours. Level 9? No, I'm level 13. I wonder if I screwed up my save. Anyway, whatever. Let's save in the bottom slot here for this video. Hour and 55. Okay. Another way you can save that I've been doing a lot is just hit the quick save disc down here. It doesn't give you a notice that you've quick saved. Oh yeah, it does. Game saved. So some enemies, when you get close to them, like in their aggro zone, they will get those little exclamation points and come chasing you. If that reminds you of King's Bounty, for those that have played the game. And then if you run far enough away, they get like confused and they walk back to where they were. Most don't that I've seen, but some do so far. So some are roaming. And then, you know, so that was very reminiscent to me of the old King's Bounty approach. Let's go ahead and go ready on this because we don't have a conquer option yet. I don't think I ever did this battle the first time I played. So, how cool, huh? I'm gonna cloak.
Feel my blade bite!
Let's remember to do longer than 2 rounds with Ori this time to make sure that it does last longer than 2 rounds. I'm pretty sure it does. He can move after he cloaks. So what the hell?
I'll sneak past them.
And then she'll just wait. So you see he gets a protected status by saving his last action point, so it works for enemies as well. And show us what protected is. Reduce damage by the next incoming attack by 50%. So that's pretty significant. That's a nice little bonus for saving that action point. So she's going to run right up here.
Move out.
She's going to do a whirlwind attack.
You're done.
So she would have done like 200 damage, right? If they didn't have that 50% protection from saving their second action point.
Now you see me.
To the flanking position and do the debilitating
Feel
strike.
my blade bite!
She's flanking as well.
Stand down.
So I believe you can tell they have like this regurgitate skill. It looks like it's at least 2 hexes, if not 3. And obviously she was the only enemy in the hex, so it hit her. Yeah, let's take a look at it. You can look at it. Belching Rot. Yeah, let's see. Covers enemies with acidic bile. Inflicts poisoned on targets that are below 50% hit points. The range is melee. Huh! Maybe it is just 1 hex. It sure looked like it covered multiple hexes, didn't it? But it does a pretty good job in the game of telling you on the range the area that it would cover. And if it just says melee, that's a single hex. So that's interesting. Okay, anyway. Well, while we're in there, let me show you something. So if he was equipped on the enemy side or on our side, on the back line, remember, not the front line, he wouldn't be down in the combat here where we could attack him physically and hurt him and whatever. Backline enemies are always safe, at least so far as I've seen. But his backline thing that he would do once a turn is he would strike a target with the lowest percentage of hit points. So the computer does this. You don't get to control your backline people. There's kind of automated, there's AI going on there. And he deals unholy damage inflicts poison on the target. So he does that from the backline once a round if he was equipped in the backline of an army. Okay. So let's go back.
Stand down. Meet your fate.
Shield.
Now you see me. Feel my blades bite.
And this is 150% combat animation speed, if you recall. I think 100% would definitely be too slow for me.
You're mine.
Just don't like waiting that long for each turn. Now, he could cloak again on purpose, even though it seems silly. Because remember, if he does, it deals bleeding damage in addition to the debilitating strike, which does weakened. And so if cloak is available, I've discovered there's almost never a reason not to activate it. And of course it has a 2-round cooldown, so you can only activate it every 2 rounds anyway. And I keep forgetting I keep forgetting to do the 2 rounds. We're
Feel
gonna do
my
it.
blades bite.
We're gonna do it, damn it. He's gonna walk
I'll sneak
away.
past them.
This is round 1. She's just gonna run around because I want to see if my theory is true. Okay, she's running over.
Moving.
And she can move twice because she has a golden.
Quickly.
Okay. He's gonna end his turn. So that's round 2. He's gonna
Now you
run
see
over
me.
here.
I'm going.
Sorry to waste everybody's time
Move out.
doing this. I have to know. I have to know if Ori's power, if he stays
Now
cloaked
you see
beyond
me.
2 rounds. End turn. Yep, he doesn't. Okay, I was wrong. So it literally is, he's only cloaked for 2 rounds. And it has a 2-round cooldown. So literally he could cloak to cloak to cloak, back to back to back, assuming that he doesn't get hit somewhere in there or attack somewhere in there. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Now we know. Alright, now we've let this guy heal, so let's cloak again.
You mess with Avy, you mess with me.
Aw, what a good
Now
thing.
you see me.
She's gonna go back here.
Move out. Die. Out.
He's already dead, but I think he may permanently die. Okay.
I'll sneak past them.
Yeah, sneak past.
Feel the snake bite.
500 damage. His damage gets pretty high as he levels as well. Alright,
You're done. Regret later, act now.
there you go. Some progress here. Level. Oh, I found leather boots. Oh, they do show here. So any items you find also appear next to the gold there. So I'll show you how that works when you get a new item. Let's open the chest as well. Okay, yep. Huh, new sword. Okay. So, here's what I was talking about earlier, although we don't have a unit in our army yet, so you won't get to see that aspect yet. This was a little unintuitive to me. So, if I want to choose what Ori has equipped, I tried left clicking on him, it doesn't work. If I was smart and I looked at the little tooltip below his skill points, you can see it says hit the right mouse button to inspect. Okay, I'll do that. Oh, there you go. So companions, this is it. They can equip a weapon or a shard. And so if you left click here, kind of like it was when we showed Avy on a screen, it shows all the weapons in your entire, inventory for the party. And he can't equip a staff because he needs to be whatever. This companion can't equip staffs, yeah, because he's not a Sword of the Lost Guard and what he has right now. So if you hold shift down and then hover over that, on the right is what he has currently equipped, and you can tell because the tooltip at the bottom says equipped, right? On the left is the choice of what he would get, right? So this is the comparison if you hold shift. And look at that, Assassin Twins Dagger requirement can only be equipped by Ryan, so that is bound to him. So there's obviously bound items. Okay, so this is better because it gives him 7 power, 7 hit points, as opposed to +1 dex. +1 in the game is not amazing. +7 power. So yeah, I'll do this one. Click here. We don't have any emotion shards yet for him to equip. That's it. So you get a weapon and a shard for companions, and then that's all you can see with him. Here's his little stats. You know, shows how far he can move. His morale, initiative, power. Power is the damage he does, etc. So hit escape. Goes back. So I would expect if I right-click on Avy, I would get the same option, and I do not. I see her character screen like you saw his with her skills, but I don't see anything down here for her weapon or her emotion shard. And then if you recall, well, she would have to have a lot of circles down here because she can also wear the full gamut of equipment, right? Helmet, chest, etc. You know, chest plate and so on. So hit escape, and you have to hit escape on the keyboard. I thought, oh, there's got to be a way. Maybe I left click on her, or maybe there's a thing on the right click menu here where I can click again and go into her full-blown inventory. There is not. So if you hit escape, it goes back to the dungeon map again. Hit escape again, so you're on the main dungeon, and this is what happens if you're on an overland map as well. You hit the escape key, and that brings you to her full-blown inventory, which I just don't think that's very intuitive. I would expect a system menu here, or, you know, whatever. I don't know. So it's different, right? And so you can click into all the submenus from here. The escape, we'll call this the escape menu. You can see that they did find some boots, and Ori can't wear boots, right? Again, weapon and shard only. So you can't equip different armor on your companions. So like last time, if we left click on her current boots, and then we hold the shift key here, so much better, right? Because she has +1 dex boots, these are +5 dex, and they also give her +1% unholy resistance, which is, are you kidding me? 1%. Okay, yippee-ki-yay. So I'm gonna hit left. And I don't know what else to say, but I've gotten used to it. It's just odd to me. So yeah, so let's walk back down here. Walk in here. I guess I was kind of I thought I explored through here the first time. I did come here before, I know that. It's open. So you would think gates that Ori, he's kind of the thief character in the party, he could like lockpick those or something. So far I've seen no evidence that he has any kind of dungeon skills with doors or traps or anything like that. Typical, you know, thief skills. Which is kind of disappointing, but it's not a huge detractor for me, as long as, I mean, not everything is this simple, I can tell you that. I've been in dungeons where I did the lever and the door that it opened wasn't like 2 feet away, right? And the first one we opened when we came in and fought the guards was that way, right? It was like a good little walk. But yeah, there's nothing else, I don't think, on the side of this room, yeah. But we did pick something up here, so let's see what it was. Again, don't left or right click on her to see her inventory, or hit I. Yeah, I doesn't do anything. Hit escape, and we see she picked up leggings. Left click, we'll hold down shift, and they're much better than what she has. They're plate leggings, +5 strength instead of +1, +3 initiative. Left click. Now another thing I found, little nuances with the UI here. So I held the shift key down and then I moved the mouse, not even off the item. So I'll show you if you can watch my cursor. I'm comparing. Now I'm going to move the mouse just a titch, and it goes away. And I'm still holding shift. So that's something to keep in mind. You need to keep your mouse steady, and then you have to do the whole process again. You have to let go of shift, hover over this. If you stay hovered, it's not going to compare it. That would probably be the easiest, to just hover over it and have it compare it for you. But as it says in the tooltip down here, hold shift to compare. So I'm going to just take my hand off the mouse, hold shift down, and it's going to compare. Then I don't. The second you touch that mouse and move it a titch, it's gone. So kind of weird. All right, back to it. And I will stop this recording because it's way long. And oh, see, there's one of those wandering monsters with the little King's Bounty exclamation points. And if I run away, I think he eventually gives up. Yeah. So you can aggro the roaming monsters. I'm gonna move this way instead. Okay, that takes me back to where I was. I can fight this dude. And then we'll end it. Just two dudes here. We will claim ready. Alright, same basic plan for these two guys, but the good news is your strategy starts to vary quite a bit as you find units and as you find additional companions. And the biggest thing you'll see change is once you have 2+ companions, now you have to choose which of your companions you're going to have in your party based on the leadership that is required, you know, because companions, as far as I've seen so far, and again, I'm not an expert on the game yet, it seems like companions require more leadership to add to your combat party, your front line, than the units do. So you can't just throw all 3 or 4 companions in there until your leadership gets really high. So you start to have to make choices like that, at least in the early game. And then just units, right? And then it's cool to have your units. I have all 3 with my level whatever, you know, 13 or whatever character in the backline, doing their passive skills every round, their backline skills, because why not? You know, put 3 back there. And then you can only put so many in the front line as your leadership will allow. But it pretty quickly, the point is pretty quickly you're going to start seeing some different strategies and things in the fighting. So we're going to go ahead and what we always do with Ori,
feel the snakes bite.
And we're going to move him.
Now you see me.
We'll just keep her where she is.
Pressing the enemy.
So he has a blue and a red. So a red being striking combat and a blue being movement. So she's going to run right here and do her whirlwind.
You're done.
And by the way, her whirlwind attack also demoralizes them, which is kind of cool. So it does damage, then it gives them -1 to their morale. And so far, morale has not been super clear to me in combat. You have to read a legend like this, you know, hover over someone's morale, and you can look at what it does. So based on what their starting morale is, if they come in as neutral or motivated or whatever, you start to reduce their power and critical chance. Critical hit chance is basically what morale does. So unlike morale in a lot of other games, it doesn't like make them run away. It doesn't make them not act. Like you would think if they're hopeless, they wouldn't even try to attack, or they might try to flee, or they might just kind of they might faint or just freeze and stay there and not do anything. Not in this game. It just takes away 15% of their damage and lowers their crit chance by -10%. I mean, you tell me, hopeless seems like it would have a bigger impact. Seems like it would reduce your critical chance by more than -10%, which is not great, and -15% of your power. Now instead of doing 100 damage to me, you're going to do 85 damage. That doesn't seem like hopeless to to me. So I don't know if I'm a huge fan of the morale system yet. I think there's a lot more they could do with that. I think they could make it more potent to begin with. Even if they just did power and crit chance, they could like double the values that you see there maybe in both directions. That might be a good thing. Okay, let's play.
Now you see me? Feel my blood fight!
Nice damage. And he bled to death. He takes big damage in turn. Ah, there's the first spell you've seen, I think.
I'll sneak past them. You mess with Avy, you mess with me!
Okay.
Die.
And last turn here. So in his case, the red, the attack action point, is also good for spells. And you actually see that a bit with some of the units that I have in my other army. The spellcaster type units, that's all they do. They don't have a physical attack. Like they can't hit you with their staff or something. There are units that all they have is 2 spells for their 2 skills here, which is fine. It's interesting. It's a little unrealistic to me with those units that they couldn't do something physical, that they couldn't punch you or stab you with a knife or something, but that's okay, you know, because spells, as long as they don't suck all your mana away, I think that's a fine version of a weapon, if you want to think of it as an attack.
Die.
See if my
Yllian
on that. So there we go. We are progressing. And we're back toward the beginning of the level. We opened that. Okay, let's run back up here because I feel like I'm missing something. We still have to find that priest. Let's go this way. I ran all the way up there for the skeleton, I believe. It's funny, I just played this not too long ago and I'm already forgetting where the priest is. Those of you who are really good with dungeon maps will probably realize I'm running in a circle here. And there's no mini-map. Sorry guys. That's the lever we pressed. This is where we started. Yep. Alright. Where is that priest? By the way, you have a horse on the mini-map, or on the world map I should say, not mini-map, on the overland map, which moves you easily twice as fast, I think, as she's moving right now. I think further up the right was that skeleton area. Oh, here we go, stairs. This is probably where the priest is. Yep. They let you heal again, might as well. And there's the priest, that's right. So this is where I would normally quick save it. Game saved. And then we have a conversation. So if I recall, we'll find out. I'm trying to remember whether you have an option not to fight him and like go on his side or something. Of course, then you wouldn't be fulfilling your contract. You do have a lot of, I will tell you this, maybe not with Sebastian here, this mission, but I will tell you for sure in subsequent missions that are fairly early on in the game still, there are almost every one I could choose, like to kill them or to side with them and kill the other people that they were fighting, or to try to befriend both. So you do have some good options, I think, so far in the game. But let's talk to this dude. Yep, blah, blah, blah,
The
blah.
rat who's been crawling our sewers reveals herself.
Yeah, his voice acting is not my favorite. So here you can tell a lie, and I haven't done that. I'm just a simple sewer cleaner. Nah. How about let your guards go and I'll spare them. Okay, so maybe this is where the guards... Nah, but he's... whatever. There's a price on your head.
Someone wants you dead, and
Okay.
Of course.
no. To
Let's hope you fight as honorably.
Yeah. Okay. 5 level 1 dudes. Let's do it. Yep, I've heard about the backline system. Not doing it right now.
Feel the snake's bite!
Okay, so Trying to think. Yeah, King's Bounty had these hexes that give you powers, right? Some are bad, some are good. This is a good one. So the second you step on it, it activates. So every hex I've seen so far, there could be different ones in the game, every hex I've seen so far activates once. So the first person who steps on it makes it happen, and then it's gone. And so the Orb of Regeneration is, you know, one of those. So immediately when you step on it, it gives you 25% of your max HP back, which neither of us are hurt right now. But what I care about is it gives you regeneration, which is nice. And so every turn you get 15% of your base hit points back. And I think it lasts the whole combat, which is pretty awesome. Oh, by the way, you can control the combat speed down here as well. Let's put it to 200% and see how it goes.
Now you see me?
It's obviously faster. She's
I'm
gonna
going.
get regen as well. And then she will... Wait, end of turn.
Feel his wrath. Walk in his light.
So you may notice the 4 guards are
We
down
will
here,
be victorious. On the offensive.
and the priest is
I
in
will
the
carve
backline.
his sword on you.
And we'll look at what his
High
skills
Father,
are.
shine a light.
Pressing the enemy.
Okay. What are the priest's skills? I think I should be able to... Maybe I can click on them up here. I thought you could hover over backline people and see what their skills were as well. Maybe not. Okay. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Look at this. 4 dudes.
Moving. You're done.
Boom. Right. He's gonna run right
Now
here
you see me.
because that's the flank, right? Or this would be a flank. The others, the flanks are cut off by the edge of the map.
You mess with Avy, you mess with me!
You die today.
We make our stand here.
I don't mind 200%.
Feel his wrath. I will carve his sword on
There's
you.
still a decent little pause in between.
Holding
each
the line.
attack. I think it's fine. I think I'll keep it at 200.
Feel my blades bite! Feel the snake's bite!
Oh, so I didn't make Ori attack there.
We
and
make our
what
stand
happened
here.
is the taunt
Wear them down.
Face your death.
So
Feel his wrath.
she automatically attacked too without me choosing. So there's a taunt skill.
Ori, something's wrong.
And when you're affected by taunt, the computer controls your character or your unit, and they attack the creature or the unit that taunted them. And I forget, taunt lasts a number of rounds, like 1 or 2 rounds, I don't know. You never get to finish this fight. You know, this is kind of like a teaser here, or not a teaser, a spoiler. There's no way to finish the fight as far as I've been able to tell. This is my 3rd time. I played the game a little just to this point the first time, then I played past this the 2nd time, so this is the 3rd time for the video. Something's wrong, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And no, won't read the whole thing.
Impossible! Stop!
It's a portal.
It's a portal, and it transfers you to your city.
From the cosmic tear, you are hurtled bewilderingly forward. Never before had mortal feet touched this soil, nor mortal eyes seen this ancient sight. Sprawling, ancient, longing to be rediscovered.
Okay.
Until now, this
Wow.
is your true home. This is your fate.
Not my favorite narrator. Decent. Much better than some games I'm sure we've all played, right? So I'm getting all these resources. Incidentally, I don't know if you remember, I got a bunch of resources to start the game off, which I think comes from the deluxe set. So I've got more down here than it mentioned that we just got on the side. So this is your city, and this is going to be one of those reminiscent pieces of the old Disciples game, where you can build different places, you can upgrade each of the places, and But a lot of games have followed that same pattern, right? Might and Magic, or Heroes of Might and Magic rather. Yes, King's Bounty and Disciples, and oh no, yeah, kind of King's Bounty in a way. A lot of games. It's not unique, but I like the way they do it, and that's where we will start video 2 is with the city building and city overview, because this
Abandoned
is your
and
city.
ancient.
Mother used
Mother
string
told me
these.
about places
You're worried
like
about
this.
Sorry.
Blah,
I
blah,
know.
blah, blah,
Let's look
yada, yada, yada. It's a cool city that we can upgrade. Okay, so there you go. So we'll go into each of those city places. Oh, and I got some spell recipes. So the first 3 spells you get are when you first discover the city. I assume that's true for every player, not just if you get the deluxe version of the game. And we'll take it from there in the second video. Thanks guys, have fun playing Disciples, or have fun considering playing it. And we will see you next time. Take it easy.